You join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'd ask you to press your P and plus for attendance. I'll note that Supervisor Kohlmeyer and Supervisor Michael both said to be running a few minutes late, so I anticipate them both to be here, but for right now they're running a little bit late. Is this not working? We have 25 in attendance for right now. No? Well, I guess we'll have to, I'll speak up and we'll do the best we can. First order of business is a presentation of the 2011 county budget by County Executive Jim Kreuser. Mr. County Executive.
Go. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me there? All right, you can use this after I'm done. Right. There you go. Chairman Molinaro, Vice Chairman Eckernes, members of the County Board, distinguished guests and citizens. As our nation continues to weather an economic storm like no other we've seen since the Great Depression, Kenosha County continues to push back. This month, Chrysler will close its doors, putting an end to, at least for now, auto manufacturing in Kenosha, a history that has lasted over 100 years. It is important to note that our community, from businesses to families, has a large debt of gratitude in so many ways to the automotive manufacturing industry in our town. Most of us here are related to or know somebody who worked at Nash, American Motors, Renault, and most recently Chrysler. And that positive impact on our community continues to be significant and will be into the future. The County Workforce Development Center, our partners at the state, Kenosha Area Business Alliance, Gateway Technical College, UW Parkside, Carthage College, together will seek to assist those who are displaced as this process continues to unwind. Kenosha County is resilient. We've proven it before, and we will continue to move forward. The reality is that county government has never been more important in our community than when times are tough. People need county government to assist them when families and neighbors cannot. Tonight I present to you the 2011 budget for our county, and our purpose is clear: to work every day to deliver high-quality services for public health and safety while trying to maximize community resources, always keeping the long haul in mind, to acknowledge today's challenges without impacting our ability to meet the opportunities of the future, and to do so with respect and compassion for the most vulnerable in our community in these uncertain times. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, the budget before you is comprised of input from many of you, the public, other governmental sources, and our own county staff. This budget will acknowledge our need to take care of the past, modify the present, and plan for the future. We will continue our course of working together like we have the past 2 years to accomplish a great deal. Thanks to your patience and willingness to work together, the Public Safety Building Addition project is on time and on budget. The renovation of the older parts of the building should be substantially completed by the end of the year. The new 911 dispatch center is now operational, finally resolving the unsafe and cramped conditions that were described both by the Phelps study and the Henry and Associates study more than a decade ago as woefully inadequate for dispatchers. What we have now is a state-of-the-art dispatch center, already being described as one of the best in the state, with room to grow. And this will help ensure that when people or protective services call 911, their calls will be answered when life and death hangs in the balance. Our information technology department has come out of the basement and into the light of day on the 3rd floor of the addition. Our sensitive and critical computer equipment is no longer in the hot, leaky basement, but in the modern, high-tech center. The Kenosha Police Department has doubled its footprint and will operate more efficiently and meets its needs well into the future as far as space is required. And the addition was constructed in cooperation with the City of Kenosha under an intergovernmental agreement that took way too much time to complete. But in the end, it was fair to the city, it was fair to the county, and the best return on investment to the taxpayers by working together. This important public safety project could not have been accomplished without leadership from the county board. This was also the most fiscally responsible option. 2011 is the budget year that is impacted by the IGA with the city on joint services. Had the county not entered into this agreement, the county would have reduced its levy by about $1.5 million. The county chose to enter into the IGA for the public safety and for the overall cost savings to the taxpayers. In addition, by not shifting the cost to the city, the entire community saves at least $2 million by avoiding the cost of duplicated services and infrastructure, and will save hundreds of thousands of dollars in the future while providing a state-of-the-art public safety facility for our citizens. Last year I stood before you and talked about the public-private partnership challenge to raise matching funds for 2 off-leash dog parks without using taxpayers' dollars. We found out that demand was so high that the public requested 3 dog parks and answered the call by raising over $50,000, so 3 parks were built without using any taxpayer money. Good ideas don't just materialize. It takes a lot of hard work and effort. I want to recognize the co-chairs of the Friends of the County Dog Parks, Mark Midori and Kathy Zamerzal, and all the members of that organization for their passion and the efforts in making Kenosha County a better place. A hearty howl to Dr. William Carlisle for the Carlisle Family Dog Park at Petrifying Springs, and also to Mary Ellen Close for the Warren Close Dog Park at KD Park, along with the town of Randall, the village of Twin Lakes, and the trustees of the village of Paddock Lake for their support of the Old Settlers Park off-leash dog park, along with Supervisor Mike Underhill. While we received 2 generous donations, these dog parks were made possible from the pennies raised by school children to the dollars donated by many families across this county to make this effort so successful. To date, we've sold nearly 500 annual dog park tags and countless daily passes. And also, Kenosha County Dog Parks Facebook has nearly 700 fans. For a $10,000 investment from Waste Management, we now have a championship disc golf course at Fox River Park. It's attracting regional attention for its beauty and challenging play, and this is a must-see recreation course. And Supervisor Erin Decker can speak to that. She was on every one of them. It had the unanticipated benefit of having an economic development in the Silver Lake, Salem area. A disc golf course store opened, and the area convenience stores are now carrying disc golf course accessories. We partnered with Lakeland Little League, and they received a $25,000 grant with help from Kenosha County to help them with their baseball concession stand at Brightondale, and that work is continuing. County Trunk KD has been reconstructed with 100% stimulus money, and a new entrance was created for the future park there. This has been one of the biggest hurdles to jump over in moving that park forward. The Green Ribbon Committee continues to work on pursue education, recreation at KD Park through private and public partnerships. Partnerships have never been more important than they are right now, especially in the world in which we live right now. We're going to partner with UW Parkside and the City of Kenosha to install traffic signal at County Highway JR and 39th Avenue at County Highway E. It's a necessary investment in public safety as 39th Avenue is slated to be completed in 2011. As the state continues the rebuilding of I-94, I believe we must keep a good infrastructure in our county. Good infrastructure leads to economic development, and that'll lead to jobs. We want people to know that Kenosha County is open for business, and that we care about making cost-effective, quality-of-life improvements to secure our future. Infrastructure is important for a healthy community. In 2011, I propose we pave 13 miles of county highways to stay on pace with the maintenance of our county trunk highway system, and we continue to add bike trail width to those roads where appropriate. In the past 2 years, we've paved nearly 10 miles of wider roads to accommodate bikes and pedestrians. One of the busiest intersections in eastern Kenosha County is County Highway G, 30th Avenue, at 18th Street, County Highway L. I am recommending we begin work on expanding the road to 4 lanes from St. Peter's Church to 15th Street and add a bike trail on the west side all the way to Highway E. When the project is completed, we would jurisdictionally transfer it to the city from 15th Street south. We are also on track to make Kenosha County more bike-friendly. A special committee on countywide bicycle facility improvements led by Don Moldenhauer, and through his involvement with Supervisor Bill Grady, developed a plan for some achievable goals for improving biking in Kenosha County. We've applied for grants to assist these efforts. We've already received preliminary approval for nearly $500,000 for bike trail improvements and expansion. Our successful efforts include money to pave the old North Shore Trail from 89th Street south to the state line and 35th Street north to County Trunk KR. And we've received a DNR stewardship grant of $104,000 for a bicycle and walking trail through Petrifying Springs. And we're going to do the engineering work to repair the road through Pets. That was already in the works, but since it was mentioned in Kenosha News Fix It, well, I guess we better fix it. And I want to give a special thanks to Supervisor Grady and Don Moldenhauer for all their works on the bike efforts. Thank you. The county board has had vision of supporting the use of dark fiber to cut down our future communication costs. This budget provides for completing Loop C. There's a map of it in your budget book that you'll receive tonight, of that system to give redundancy to our broadband system. But we should not stop there. Providing high-speed internet access is important infrastructure for economic development and education. There are about 39,000 residents, or 30% of our county geography, that does not have high-speed internet access. This budget makes an investment that will lay the groundwork for making high-speed broadband available where it is not now. And it will make a dramatic improvements in the ability of law enforcement and protective services from the city's east side to Randall's west edge. Creating a high-speed business opportunities anywhere in the county will not only help create jobs, it helps narrow the potential of an achievement gap across all ages. And this could be done as early as the end of 2011 or the beginning of 2012. One thing we know for certain, if we don't offer high-speed hookup services, businesses won't even be looking at that third of our county for development without that service. And we would not be an internet provider. Private enterprise will be called on to fill that gap as it should be. And while we are building economically necessary infrastructure, we must also maintain our county's infrastructure. We should not and cannot let assets fall apart. You all heard about the limestone falling off of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. I know we won't let that happen here. The critical restoration of the Kenosha County Courthouse and the Molinaro building needs to begin next year. The cost will be $5.5 million over 2 years. To say the least, this was an unanticipated cost by all of us here in this room. But we can't just look away. We could not replace those buildings, not only because of their historical significance, but also because of their beauty. These are priceless to this county. We are in the process of making sure this type of thing doesn't happen again by developing a facilities inventory, much like we have to keep up our county trunk highway maintenance. Deferring maintenance or not making necessary improvement when it makes sense to do so will just cost the county more in the future. So it's important to keep track of all of our assets. I also want to make it clear that even with the deferred maintenance that we must do, this budget keeps us within our debt policy. And this overall budget, if adjusted for inflation over 5 years, including this budget, the compounded average increase to the taxpayer would be 1.3% a year total increase, which is less than the rate of inflation. As a result of this unanticipated cost of restoring the courthouse and the Molinaro building, there are other important deferred maintenance projects which we are not going to be able to do. I'm putting the black course at Brightondale on the far, far back burner. I've heard from the public and I've heard from many county board supervisors very clearly on that issue. So in the future, we'll need to focus on removing a third of the sand traps, which are the second most expensive part of the golf course, installing the arteries of the irrigation system, and improved practice facilities for the public. And golf rates for next year will not go up. Make no mistake, most of the irrigation system has exceeded its useful life, but it's a project we cannot afford to do right now. Our team will continue to have to manage personnel to deal with the necessary daily maintenance of this antiquated irrigation system. And also not included in this budget is the parking lot resurfacing at the Job Center, a sound system upgrade at the Kenosha County Center, 2 maintenance building renovations, floor covering requests, furniture replacements, just to name a few of the items we cannot do in 2011. But those are just things. It's people that matters in Kenosha County. And we strive every day to provide the best services to Kenosha County residents in the most cost-efficient manner possible. People around the state and the region look at our service delivery service center at the Job Center as one of the best. We've had international tours come just to check out how the Job Center performs. County government provides the kind of services to people you and your neighbors cannot provide, and we do it well. Tough economic times like these are when people need county government the most. We can provide that helping hand while always being mindful of providing assistance in the most cost-effective way and efficient manner. Our investment in Kenosha County at-risk continues. Our investment in Kenosha County's at-risk youth continues to have positive results. We've expanded our National Night Out to 2 events in different neighborhoods, worked with John Rudy, the general manager of the parks, to have low-cost movie nights at a neighborhood church in the city. Several other activities were held to bring together neighbors and families. The Summer Youth Employment Program put more than 225 at-risk youth to work, aged from 14 to 21. And they worked at more than 50 businesses and organizations. From 2008 to 2009, overall arrests for youth under 18 for all crimes dropped from 1,140 to 712, and to about 634 in the same period this year. I ask you to continue funding this program in 2011. We either invest in our youth through prevention, or we'll pay more for incarceration later. And in the area of youth detentions, the cost and the use have dropped dramatically since we started using Washington County's facilities past year. It's something the county board has looked at for years, and we finally implemented it. In fact, we hit a milestone this past weekend. And Terry, I don't know if you remember when the last time we had 0 kids in detention. Saturday we had 0. This was the first time in a very, very long time. that we had 0 in detention. A lot of things are working together. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department, the judges, the District Attorney's Office, the Department of Human Services, the Juvenile Intake Division for working together to make these programs even better than they were, resulting in better outcomes for youth and saving a significant amount of money. The cost was $880,000 in 2009 and has dropped by more than 1/3 and will budget $500,000 in 2011. Admissions appear to be at an all-time low from a high of 626 in 2001 to an estimate of 175 for 2010. We will work with the Kenosha Unified School District on nearly a dozen programs to keep or get our youth on the right track. And we will partner with Wilmot and Central School Districts to do the same in the western part of the county. We will also continue our commitment to the county's elderly. Our work to increase Medicare rehab patients at Brookside Care Center has allowed for us for the second year in a row to have 0 tax levy dollars going toward Brookside Care Center. And we continue our commitment to the neediest in our community. I want to thank Brookside Administrator Fran Petrick and all the nursing home staff, as well as Brookside Board of Trustees President Bob Pitts, for making our county nursing home one of the best in the state. And we must acknowledge that the work they do there is difficult. Every job is difficult at Brookside. Fran has quite a balancing act there, and I know she'll do her best to meet budgetary goals while putting residents' care at the forefront. As you are aware, Kenosha County had challenges in 2010. One of the most obvious was the impact the state funding cuts had on our highway division and its employees. The State Department of Transportation slashed summer state highway maintenance reimbursement by more than $280,000. We anticipate in 2011 the state cut to be about $450,000. We told our highway workers about the shortfall possibilities in the fall of 2009, early 2010, and as soon as we knew about it, we committed to work with them to find a long-term solution. I am concerned, to say the least, that we could not reach an agreement with AFSCME Local 70 on any of the proposed solutions. We did not want to lay any people off. We requested using rolling furlough days for workers while we continued to work on an agreement. The union rejected that idea, and we had little choice but to lay off 14 highway workers on June 21st. I was not going to bring a deficit to the county board of just under $300,000. I consider each and every one of our employees part of our Kenosha County family, but we cannot subsidize the state for its summer highway maintenance work. Once you do the state a favor, it will shift onto our tax rolls. We will, and we have to, act when public health or safety issues arise. And we will, and we have, billed the state appropriately. But work on our county roads continues as usual and will be well maintained. We then came to the union with a plan to bring all the laid off workers back this summer. It involved changing how we do business in a way that would allow us to keep good family supporting jobs in the department, not just for now, but the long haul. That plan was rejected. The last time we formally met with Local 70 was July 30th. We have been told they could not meet formally again until after October 5th. I say tonight to all of you the same thing I've said to Local 70 in meetings this past spring. We remain committed to working with you to solve this situation, which is not going to go away anytime soon. The county needs a real public works department with flexibility to shift personnel to parks in the summer and to plow snow in the winter. It just makes sense to make people on the county board, and it makes sense to the public. Meanwhile, we have work to do, and I have a budget I must present to you. Tonight, I propose that we develop a true public works department by eliminating 10 state helper patrolman positions and creating 10 Department Public Works laborer positions and 5 Department of Public Works parks positions. This will give us the flexibility to use employees to do parks or highway work as we prioritize. Of course, we will bargain the impact of this proposal with the union. But changes must be made to allow for the lasting solution and not just a revolving door of layoffs. It's not good for the employees, and it's not good for the county. The 14 laid-off workers will be asked to return to their jobs sometime in October and or November. Let me be clear, as I was in March when I stood before this county board, county government isn't in the business just to employ people. We're here to serve the needs of the community in the most prudent way for the long haul. The highway department is not the only one that will be seeing changes in personnel. 2 jobs have been defunded in the Department of Planning and Development. This budget merges the Register of Deeds and the Land Information Office, in which one property lister from Land Information is defunded, as well as an office associate from the Register of Deeds office, and that'll be defunded on June 1st. These county levy positions can be absorbed at this time into human services, which are substantially funded by state and federal government. I want to thank ASME Local 990 Clerical for working with us to make changes that keep people employed but reduce taxpayers' costs during this retrenchment. Overall, this budget eliminates nearly $700,000 in positions. And I want to share my deep appreciation for Local 990 Clerical, Local 168, and Local 1392 for working with us and acknowledging the tough economic times by accepting 0 wage increases in contracts settled for the next several years. This will help save good family-supporting jobs and help all of us to do the important work of county government. As a result of the cooperation of the unions that are working with us, the budget impact of wage increases that were delayed to the end of this year and the 0 increases in the following years, the actual impact is 0.2% lift over the next 3 years. Last year, we stopped subsidizing retiree health care, saving $760,000, and put an end to the rising costs by offering up a solution that kept the price relatively flat for retirees and reduced our other post-employment benefit liability from $131 million to $92 million. We are continuing to evaluate and address our OPEB costs. Both rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's, have urged us to continue to reduce our OPEB liability to maintain a sound bond rating. In this budget, we are also eliminating the vacation cash outs for non-represented employees who are not protective pay, saving in excess of $65,000 a year starting this year. Every day, as a result of the dedication and hard work of county employees, great things happen. It's not all doom and gloom like you've been hearing. In circuit court, video conferencing is now underway before the court commissioner and for Chapter 51 hearings, where individuals who are being held at St. Luke's Hospital in Racine. It's a saving in transportation costs, but it's also less disruptive for the hospitalized individuals. I want to thank Chief Judge Mary Wagner, Judge David Bastianelli, who led the effort for the judges, Clerk of Courts Becky Mataska-Mentink, Assistant Corp Counsel Joe Cardamone, County Information Technology Division, the District Attorney's Office, and the State Public Defender's Office for working together to get this done. This didn't happen in one meeting. This took about 10 to 12 meetings to make this come off. And cooperation by all these parties had to have it happen. And it sends a message of how we're going to be able to save money with video conferencing in the future. There are numerous other types of hearings that this is appropriate for, and we're going to slowly, gradually increase that as time goes on. The County Child Support Agency showed excellent initiative by developing the first online inventory of child support services so that people can easily navigate through a sometimes complicated system, and providing answers to common questions, and it also has a most wanted feature, calling out the biggest offenders in arrears. Over the past year, the County Health Department has completed putting restaurant inspections on the web so you can look to see if your local eatery is safe. The health department has also provided excellent service during the H1N1 influenza outbreak. And it's now immunizing people to avoid whooping cough to hopefully slow this re-emerging disease. And Healthy People Kenosha County Plan, with the help of Supervisor Mike Gable, is strategizing for 2020 to improve the county's health and safety and our rankings in these areas. In this budget, we continue to seek operational efficiencies. In 2011, we will join the Register of Deeds Office and the Land Information Office, both operationally and physically, by putting both offices on the bottom floor of the Kenosha County Administrative Building. The shared resources will reduce personnel costs of both functions and provide greater effectiveness. I want to thank Register of Deeds Louise Principe, Land Information Officer Al Brockmeyer, and Planning and Development Director George Melcher for their cooperation in this effort. We will also be increasing the operational resources and efficiencies of the Division of Emergency Management by giving the oversight of that office to the Sheriff's Department. It just makes sense for the department charged with public safety in the event of emergencies to be aligned closely with the county's top public official safety agency. Emergency Management, a department of two, will now be able to access full resources of the Sheriff's Department with no additional operational cost. And we'll be making change in our Medical Examiners Division with no cost increase as a result of the resignation of Dr. Mark Wittick, who will remain with us through the end of the year. I would like to personally thank Dr. Mark Wittick for his excellent service to Kenosha County, and in his resignation letter he said, "The duties here restrict my ability to do enough outside work, and I don't want to stand in the way of anyone making more money, and I want to publicly acknowledge the professionalism and thank Dr. Wittick for assisting us during transition, and I wish him well." Dr. Wittick is here tonight. Thank you very much, Doctor. Stand up, please. After consulting with District Attorney Robert Zaft and Sheriff Dave Beth and Police Chief John Morrissey, we will be contracting for a forensic pathologist work, and I will be appointing a lay medical examiner sometime in the future, which will come before this board. This model works in many counties in the state, and there will be no additional costs of the budget that's presented to you. Another move in this budget is the Corporation Counsel's office. They will be moving from the Ewell building to the former IT building in the southeast corner at the garden level at the courthouse. That's the basement. This is really a more appropriate place for the county's attorneys to reside, is back at the courthouse, and I appreciate Frank Volpentesta's understanding and cooperation on this your fifth or sixth move, Frank. Might be seventh. But I know many board members wanted him to come back, and that's where we plan in this budget to move him there. We will also finally be providing much-needed safe haven for victims and witnesses in court proceedings. Rather than having to stand in the hallways with suspected perpetrators and their families, the District Attorney's Office will have a victim witness waiting room also in one of the former IT offices in the courthouse for a very minimal cost. This is long overdue, and it's the right thing to do. I want to personally thank District Attorney Bob Zaff and his staff, particularly Sandy Bertelli and Kathy Keeman, for their efforts to help victims and witnesses. And as I have said before, there's no better stimulus package for a community than jobs. At the suggestion of Chairman Molinaro and in concert with Finance Chairman Joe Clark, I am proposing that Kenosha County take an aggressive approach to attracting more businesses to Kenosha County. In essence, redirecting $1 million contribution to the Kenosha Area Business Alliance to create high-impact, deal-closer economic development program. This will give Kenosha County a distinct edge when a large firm needs an extra push to come here. Todd Battle came before this group, and he told you that we have the workers, the talent, the job skills, the quality of life, and sometimes we needed a little extra and didn't have it. And when we didn't have it, we lost those potential gems. Now is the time to be nimble Now is the time to have that competitive edge, and now is the time to make economic development and bringing more private sector jobs our top priority. But I will look to you, the county board, to put in place the framework to establish this program with CABA. If it's something that can be worked out, that can't be worked out, the board could decide instead to put the money toward debt reduction over the next several years. This gives the board flexibility in the coming weeks and months to decide where to go on this, but I am recommending that we use this flexibility to attract good family-supporting private sector jobs through high-impact economic development. As you know, we recently affirmed our AA1 bond rating with both Standard & Poor's and Moody's, which is just below AAA. It should be our goal of Kenosha County to become a AAA-rated county over the next several years. I think it's an achievable goal, but there are some things we're going to have to do together to get it done, and some of them are not easy. But now we start with this budget proposal. This budget dramatically reduces the practice of using reserves to fund things like the Kenosha County History Center and the Kemper Center. If we are to support such organizations, we must support them from tax levy and not from reserves. This is a pattern that was started long before I was in office, but one I want to stop now. This budget has them on the levy. These are some of the accounting best practices we need to implement if we're going to be a AAA-rated county. This budget decreases the anticipated revenue levels almost across the board. As a result, we must reduce the amount of tax levy typically offset by those revenues. This will help avoid mid-year cuts like we did this year when we cut $1.3 million mid-year because of the decline in the waste management tipping fees and a significant dip in the county sales tax revenue. In 2011, we decreased revenues such as $800,000 in the county sales tax revenue, $314,000 in waste management tipping fees, $65,000 from Dairyland Greyhound Park, obviously, $113,000 in land use fees from planning and development, and we will also reduce the amount of Kenosha County jail revenue we use to offset the tax levy. This number needs to be lowered every year. We have to be prepared in case we ever lose that revenue. We certainly hope we won't, but the county budget has relied too heavily on jail revenues, which is another practice from a previous administration that I'll be seeking to diminish over time. In this budget, there is an increase of $1 million for the Sheriff's Department, which will include a traffic interdiction unit, additional jailers to decrease overtime, but acknowledging those jobs will be reduced if the number of inmates drop. It puts $2 million toward the District Attorney's Office and the Circuit Courts, making up for lost revenues and increased workloads. The result of this budget is a 3.1% increase on an average home, which equates to about the cost of a large McDonald's coffee each month. Not the latte kind. The county levy analysis shows that compounded annually, the impact on this budget on the average home has been 1.3% over the past 5 years, including the budget presented to you tonight. And the increase has been less than the rate of inflation over that same period. This budget is responsible to the taxpayers. It maintains necessary services to those who need them. It allows the county to maintain and take steps toward building necessary infrastructure. It puts us in the fiscal trajectory to attain a AAA bond rating, and it makes Kenosha County even more attractive for businesses to bring more private sector jobs. We can't pull the sheets up over our heads while we wait and hope things get better. We have to take the initiative and be the directors of our own destiny. As you have heard tonight, some tough choices had to be made in this $200 million budget, of which 70% comes from state and federal sources. This budget makes up for some sins of the past and creates a corrective action plan to create important infrastructure, address human needs, and be financially solid. This proposed 2010-2011 budget takes into account that we will need the tools of personnel and infrastructure to meet the challenges of tomorrow. I am confident in the future of Kenosha County, and I look forward to working with all of you in the coming weeks as we mold and shape our shared vision for making Kenosha County even better tomorrow than it is today. I believe in Kenosha County, and I know all of you do too. Thank you, and may God bless Kenosha County. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and you will now have, thank you. Thank you. And I think you'll all get your budgets now.
Mr. Executive, thank you. Appreciate the input on the budget. We look forward to our upcoming budget debate. At this point, I'm going to open the floor to citizen comments. If you are wishing to make a comment, please approach the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5-minute limits on your statements. Yes, sir.
Is this mic on? No? Yes? No? That's fine. You guys will hear me. Mark Montague, 7835 36th Avenue, Kenosha. Part of Local 70, Kenosha County Highway Department. Jim, I want to thank you for the face wash. That was very nice to get in the middle of negotiations. It's exactly what we were looking for. We talk about jobs. The county's given most of ours away. Not only are the 14 guys sitting in back, every other job that we used to do, center lining, additional maintenance jobs that we have been all bid out. We talk about a Department of Public Works that we need to do at the golf course right now, and we can't do the work because it needs to be bid out. But we wouldn't want to bring those 14 guys back to do this work that the county could be doing. Just wondering how many highway department bosses were here. There is none. It's perfect. It's just the way it is at work. Nobody really cares. This other issue with the snow plowing and the things that are going to happen here, it's October, people. October. We're going to be getting hit with snowballs pretty soon. And this economic development and people coming in and out of the county is going to be a whole heck of a lot different with people in the wrong places, which this layoff has incurred, people in different trucks, which this layoff has incurred, and a whole new scheme that we have no idea what's going on. But we should be the last ones to know, because we'll be the ones out there doing the work. Thank you very much.
Any other If the applause occurs again, pro or con, I will close citizen comments. Anyone else wishing to speak? I'd like to show some decorum for those who are speaking. Please do not show public displays following each speaker. Anyone else wishing to speak? Any other citizen comments? Seeing none, citizen comments are closed. Announcements of the chairman. I have just a quick thank you to Sheriff Beth, who arranged the Air One team to be here tonight to see that group in action and have the opportunity to go up on a flight. It was incredible. I know a number of us in the room had that same opportunity. It is clearly a group that does a great service to the community when it's necessary, and we'd all like to think that it isn't necessary, but obviously from time to time it certainly is. What you heard this evening from the county executive was a presentation of his budget as presented by the administration. There's talk of reorganization. There's talk about capital projects that will include a significant amount of work on 2 buildings in the downtown campus, the Molinaro building as well as the courthouse. Our sales tax revenue continues to be down. Our revenues in general continue to be down. At the same time, our tax delinquencies continue to rise. So we have a great deal of challenge ahead of us. There's talk of economic development in the executive's budget as well. And I'm going to ask all on the county board to be diligent about the budget deliberations at the committee. Take the time to thoroughly go through, discuss, evaluate how that budget meshes with where the county board has been in the past, where we are with our current resolution that we brought forward for the budget increase that we anticipate, and send to the Finance Committee a recommendation that comes with a great deal of thought, not just in terms of approving what is before you, but a great deal of thought in terms of how we can make adjustments where we think adjustments are necessary. And I'm not talking cuts, I'm talking about everything. That's all I have. Supervisor reports. Supervisor Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to ask that, I'm not sure these mics are working, so you're going to have to speak up, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Building and Grounds Committee had their meeting this evening, and one of the things I'd like to bring to your attention is the closing of the property, Corporation Council's property and the neighboring property, where we had a sale that went through. That closed the 21st of last month. We've been through this probably 3 or 4 times, apprising you of the grassy strip approximately 8 feet wide that was sold to the adjoining property owner. That has been completed. Also in our meeting tonight, we were brought up to speed on the public safety building, its remodeling, and how the actual changeover occurred on the 20th of last month for emergency services to have that up and operating, completely functional. As alluded to by the county exec, that was on time, on budget. And as a side note, all the transfer of material, offices moving from one space to another was accomplished by county personnel. There were no outside vendors or agencies, except I think for one large conference table that had to be moved. So again, it was done within the county's framework, and it's been most successful. On a similar note, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, we will have another tour of the public safety building for any interested supervisor that wants to attend. We will meet in the lobby of the south entrance. We have our committee meeting regarding this 2011 budget scheduled for Wednesday the 20th, 6:30 p.m. on the second floor of this building. We'll meet as a committee, Building and Grounds, to evaluate the 2011 budget. Any interested supervisor, of course, you're welcome. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to interject here because your comment reminded me of something I wanted to make a statement on. With regard to going through the budget, each committee, I know there's several committees that meet before the county board meeting. I'm going to stress strongly that you give your committees ample time to review and approve the budget. If you can't do it on an evening before the county board meeting, and I urge you not to do it on an evening before the county board meeting, that you schedule it for a different evening. So I can't impress upon you enough to spend, all of us collectively, to spend the time necessary to review the budget the way it needs to be reviewed. Thank you. Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief update or information about the budget process. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago the county board adopted a policy where we come in with a advisory levy objective. This county board passed a levy objective of 2.75%. That's a hard levy number. It's advisory. Tonight we heard that the levy went up or maybe not the levy, but it went up 3.1%. That is net of new growth. This levy increase that is presented to us tonight is 4.94%. It's a $3.5 million increase on the operating budget. The debt budget went down by roughly $800,000. So number one, the county board has has made a recommendation. In the 7 or 8 years since this policy has been adopted, this would be the first time that the levy came in over the advisory number. Certainly these are challenging times. I do want to thank the administration and the executive for bringing a budget forward. This budget no longer is the county executive's budget. This budget, according to state statutes, is the county executive's recommendation. This budget is the #1 policy, the biggest policy that the county board makes every year. I hope that the committees consider the resolutions that we've passed in the past, consider whether we want to hold that line. There will be a lot of work, if that's your intent, to be done in the committees. We need a strong committee process to have an effective operating county board. So like always, if there's something that you're not sure of, talk to the committee chairman, attend the committee meetings. We're going to have that process the next couple of weeks. Previously, last meeting, you were given dates for when our public hearings are. I think it's last week in October. So I just encourage the committees to spend the time, ask the questions. If they need to meet an extra time to get through it, that they do that, ask for the information that they need. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Clark. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Supervisor Clark's comments. I urged my committee last evening to do those exact things. We're holding our meeting on the budget, and you'll be glad to hear it's a separate meeting, special evening next Monday for anyone that is interested. And I did stress those same points. This is a new year, and we have many new supervisors here on the county board. An example of what happened in our committee last night is that we saved $180,000 on the purchase of our golf carts this year. It's in the CIP, and my committee, against my judgment, I asked them to wait until we received our budget this evening and see if we could move it into the CIP for next year on something needed. My committee voted to spend it on golf cart paths last evening. These are the type of decisions that I hope a mature county board looking at this budget takes a little more time as far as their decisions. Good news from the Highway and Parks, we are next Saturday the 16th going to have our first vision for people that want to come in and see the proposed KD Park, Highway KD and Highway F. We have the entrance in now. Hiking trails are in. We're going to have updated maps for people. There will be fishing allowed, non-motorized boats. We're going to do that on the 16th, and then do it 2 weekends after that. We're going to do it at least 2 weekends in the fall, hopefully 3. Again, our budget meeting is going to be next Monday evening. I don't know the date. Golf revenues for this year at this point are down, not drastically, but they are down. That was our report. We don't have it. We didn't have an official report of numbers last evening, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Seeing no other lights, Clerk.
New business, Resolution 61 from the Finance Committee, a resolution awarding the sale of $7,325,000 taxable general obligation refunding bonds. Finance Clark, yes. O'Day, yes. Jeff Gentz, yes. Akernis, yes. Singer, yes.
Resolution 61 moved by, Supervisor Clark.
I move Resolution 61.
Resolution 61, moved by Supervisor Clark, seconded by Supervisor O'Day. Supervisor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe at the last county board meeting, we authorized going out to market for these general obligation refunding bonds. If you recall that Ehlers and Associates, following county guidelines, anticipated that there would be at least a 2% savings, and it made sense for us to refinance our bonds. On your desk tonight, we have the packet from Ehlers. Some of you have your packet from the last meeting. So the packet that you're looking for on the left side, if you open it up, it says sales results, 7,305,000 taxable general obligation refunding bonds. The bonds that we are refinancing had a previous interest rate of 5.375%. The interest rates that came in on the bids, there were several bids, I think there were 5 of them, came in at 3.13%. The cost of the issuance of the bonds, if we flip through to page 3, came in lower because the underwriter took a less of a discount on the bonds. Our cost of issuance also were decreased because we just went to the bond rating agency and we did not get hit for a charge for that. So by putting all our bonds together closely and going to market, we saved money there. Between those two items, I think that was over a $25,000 savings. On page 4, the preliminary planning schedule indicated that they intended that we were going to save about $234,000, or on a net present value, $184,000, or 2.75%. On page 5, with the actual sale results that came in, our savings ended up being $552,409 with a net present value of $454,000. Over the 12 years remaining, that's almost a $40,000 a year savings. You'll note in the last column for 2011 that that's a $46,000 savings on our levy for next year. We intended that we were going to have a $19,000 savings when this came forward. This debt schedule anticipates paying down this issue faster than previously anticipated. So this is really a no-brainer. It's saving money for the county. I want to thank the administration, and I want to thank Ehlers and Associates for their work in this regard. We have Mr. Dave Wagner, the Executive Vice President and Financial Advisor here. If anybody has any questions, I would urge your unanimous support.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any questions? Anyone wishing to speak on number 61? Seeing no lights, this requires a 2/3 vote, 2/3 majority. Roll call. Those in favor, P and plus. Those opposed. Hold on. Let's try it again. All right. P and plus if you're in favor, P and minus if you're opposed. Supervisor Frederick. There we go. Resolution 61 passes 28-0.
Communications from Michael K. Higgins regarding temporary zoning district classification of land in the town of Summers.
Refer to land use.
Claims, Aslan J. Vega, damaged windshield.
Refer to Corporation Council.
19, Jill Catherine Cunningham, damaged windshield.
Refer to Corporation Council.
20, Summers USA LLC, loss of compensation for property.
refer to Corporation Council.
Supervisor Common, Supervisor Hallman, foreclosures.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief, as one of my colleagues has just reminded me to be. I want to remind everybody, or just rather update you, that there were 2 town halls held for people facing foreclosure. One was for renters, the other was for homeowners. The attendance for both of those was low, but one of the outcomes of the discussions that was had during both of those is that, given the scope of the issue, is that they may need to be repeated. Where the attendance factor might be considered important, I think the content that was addressed during those town halls is far more significant. One of the things that came up was that upon receiving the notice of foreclosure, particularly in the case of renters, is that we do have homeowners who decide to become landlords and then use that money to go towards paying off the mortgage. The trouble with that is, if any of you have looked at some of the municipal law, there's little regulation, in some cases none, of landlords. And so the creation of those ordinances are the domain of cities, towns, and villages. Counties can address the tenant portion of the landlord-tenant relationship through a Rent-Smart program with UW Extension. A carefully crafted plan, a hybrid between the ordinance portion and the Rent-Smart program, could be easily made budget neutral for all parties involved and would be paid through user fees and result in an indirect savings to the county budget by reducing the burden on our court system. Now, that I've just shared with you is something that sort of got batted around during the town hall meeting, and it only exists as a plan in the form of the words that I just spoke to you. So beyond that, there is nothing else. Further research and development on that will be coming after January 1st of 2011. With regard to the homeowners town hall, one of the things that came up is that many homeowners that are struggling to get help simply stop paying their mortgages and walk away. Attorney Leibowitz, who was one of the guests on the panel, said, "Don't give up." He said, "You have to treat this like a bully. If you just decide to run away, you've lost the fight. But if you stand there and you decide to throw a couple of punches, you never know, you actually might come out ahead." There were a number of handouts that were given that I actually have on my desk, some things from WIDA about foreclosure, some things from the Federal Trade Commission, and the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions. As some of you might know, there were some articles that appeared from the Associated Press and the New York Times about people robo-signing. This was something that Attorney Leibowitz had brought up during the town hall meeting before those news articles broke. And in some cases, it has resulted in banks like Chase and Bank of America basically halting the foreclosure crisis because there were executives who signed off on affidavits without actually certifying that they knew what they were signing off on. And in some cases, there's one here where someone from BFA says that she signed 7,000 to 8,000 foreclosure documents a month. And there's a quote. She says, "I typically don't read them because of the volume that we sign." So these sorts of things have basically put us in the position where we have to rely on the court system to really effectively deal with this so people can keep their homes, and in some cases we might even be able to rescue our budget in terms of our tax levy. So 2 things that you might want to put on your calendar. I'll be meeting tomorrow with the Cush Fair Housing Task Force at 5:15 in the evening at St. Mary's Lutheran Church. The address of that is 2001 80th Street. And what we're going to talk about is trying to plan a foreclosure mediation session, which would basically have the U.S. Housing and Urban Development and U.S. Treasury. I've been in conversations with both of them to get together and to get borrowers and lenders together at the table with a HUD-certified housing counselor representative, and basically they'd be able to renegotiate the terms on the spot. That's something that we're getting together to try to figure out what volunteer resources would be needed and what the best date and location would be to have that. Something for us more in terms of long-term is there's a woman by the name of Natalie Fleury who will be visiting us next week on Tuesday, October 12th at 1:30. She'll be on the 2nd floor in this building. She is with the Marquette Foreclosure Mediation Program. She is part of their law school. She's an adjunct professor of law, their program coordinator for dispute resolution. And the goal of that is to figure out where, how, when, at what cost, and to whom can we have a long-term foreclosure mediation program for folks in our county. and if we might have to partner with Racine in order to figure out how to effectively distribute our resources in order to make that happen. So those are the two things that are happening that I want to sort of drop in your minds now. If you want to get involved in that, let me know. If you have further questions, don't ever hesitate to ask. And with that, I yield my time.
Supervisor Holman, I appreciate your report and your diligence, and look forward to hearing more from you. Anyone else? Oh, I guess no. No one else. Clerk.
Approval of the September 21st, 2010 by Supervisor O'Day.
Supervisor O'Day. Moved by Supervisor O'Day, seconded by Supervisor Singer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Michael, seconded by Supervisor Clark. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.